Hello, so in this tutorial I want to teach you how to work with the library tab in the Advanced Workspace. So let's just log in our framework and choose the Advanced Workspace and show the lib tab. Okay, now that we are seeing the lib tab, what we have here? So we have basically here three groups. We have internal library with some internal files. We have external library that I'll explain you later, but basically is a vendor file, a vendor folder where you can upload external software that you want to install inside of our framework. And then you have other files. So you have three groups. Basically the other files is where you put any type of files that you wish to have here. Basically you can put the files that the client gave you related with specific projects. Basically in here you can organize it whatever you want. My recommendation is that you create here subfolders. Each project should be related with that subfolder, so you can have all the files related with the project, so you can have everything organized inside of that subfolder. Otherwise, if you have a lot of projects, then the other files will be a little bit messy, but this is only a recommendation. Okay, so these other files. Internal library basically it's internal files, programming files that this framework uses to run and that the pages or the projects will use to run to, the projects that you create, that they will use to. Additionally, there is a bunch of code here that could be useful for you to create some projects, so you don't need to do it, you can just reuse that code. How can you know that? You can go to our documentation, or you can go to here manage docbook, and in the manage docbook you can just navigate through our files in here and see the correspondent methods and the correspondent comments of what method does what. Let me show you an example. Like I'm seeing this specific file here, and I'm seeing that this is a class, and I'm see here that has a bunch of comments with some properties and has some other comments with these methods and this other method, and there's an explanation of what this method does, it's here. And if I want to see additionally, if I want to see what these methods or what are the methods that this file has, I can always click in here, view docbook, in this guy here, and I can do automatic. This will be obfuscated, but you can always do a print codes. In here you have here an option and do pretty print codes, and automatically it will show you the codes in a beautiful way, and you can understand what each method does. Okay, so this is related with internal library. So internal library are basically internal files. Every time that we launch a new function, a new version of our framework, it means that probably these files were changed too. So attention, using files that we have here. Okay, so this is internal library. External library, and this gets interesting. External library, it's a vendor folder that you can upload software that you download from the web, and you can install it directly in here. Any type of software. Well, in this case it will be software, it will be PHP software that can run in the same platform. So then you can create your own subfolders here and upload that specific files that you download. Additionally, we have some 4 folders that you cannot edit them, that you cannot delete them, which are reserved folders to extend our framework. So our framework, it is an extensive framework that you can extend it in multiple different ways. How? So the first folder calls code workflow editor. So if you expand it, you have another folder called task, and if you expand it, you have a bunch of folders that I created by default, so you can see an example of which type of extension does this do. This is every time that you edit some diagram of low codes, you have some tasks that you can drag and drop to create your own diagram. so you can extend that task. So we have a bunch of tasks already. If you would like to create new ones specifically for your business, you can do it, and you just need to upload it here. Let me show you an example which is easier to see. So let's just create a dummy service function. It doesn't really matter which one it is, and in here we are currently seeing the local diagram, where basically I can just create my own diagram. This is just some dummy thing that I did. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so these tasks here that you are currently seeing in here, you can extend these tasks here. How? If you go to this library, to these tasks, wherever the files, the corresponding tasks that you upload here, it will appear then in here. How can you create tasks? We have in our documentation everything explained in a detailed way, but let me just give you an overview very fast. What does this currently do? So currently, if I expand all these files here, I see a bunch of folders and subfolders. So basically what's happening is that I'm adding this task here called user task 4 inside of the logic group. Does this group exist? It does, it's here. So which means that this task will be appended to this group. So if I scroll down, I'll see here the user task 4, which is in here, which is correspondence with these files here. All these files here is explained in our documentation. Now then I see other folder here, a folder called test, and then I see a bunch of other folders which corresponds to tasks, as I can see here. So these 3 folders corresponds to tasks. So and these tasks, which are user task 3, user task 1 and user task 2, are inside of the test folder, the test group. Does the test group exist? No. So what it will do, the system, it will create a new group and will append at the end. So if we scroll down, we're going to see that we have a test group here with the corresponding tasks that I add here. So this is a way that I can extend my own low code diagram, adding tasks according with my business. So this is where I do it. So basically the place that I can put my new task, it's in here, inside of the external library, inside of these 2 folders. Now then we have something else, which is layout UI editor. So basically if you go to the interface, if you open like some page, every time that you see a layout like this type, or where you see this type of widgets, this editor, it's an HTML editor, what you see, what you get editor, where you have a bunch of widgets. We use this editor in a bunch of different files. So every time that you see here, you can extend with new widgets. How do you do this? So you just need to upload the corresponding widgets inside of this folder here, and you can put them inside of groups too. So I can tell you that this is like 2 widgets that I created here, user widget 1 and user widget 2. You can see how does the widget get created in our documentation. We have everything explained in a detailed way there. It's very easy. So basically I just create these 2 dummy widgets here and I put it inside of a group called user generated. So if the system will try to find if this group already exists. If it does, it will append these widgets. If it's not, it will create a new group and append it correspondingly. So if we scroll down, we will see here the last group, which is user generated with the corresponding widgets that are here. So basically this is like a way to extend the widgets in this editor. Additionally, we have the DAO folder and the test unit folder. The DAO folder basically, and I have here in the tests, in this test 2 folder, I have some example here. It's to be used in the data access layer. So I explained to you in our previous video tutorials that when you create a rule, data access rule, which is basically a query, you can have some parameter maps or some parameter classes that will parse and convert the corresponding input for that query. And then you can parse and convert the corresponding result that query return. You can convert or parse in a result map or a result class. So that types of result map and result classes, you create it here and you put it here. Basically you put here, which is the DAO. DAO means data access object. Is explained too in our documentation what is a data access object, what is a DAO. But basically you can create two types of files here. The types, the files with the T icon and the files with the H icon. The files with the T icon, it means there is an object type. So basically every time that you create a map, a result map or a parameter map, you will have attributes inside of that map saying that I want that specific input, which could be an object, and that object it could have some properties. Let's say that object has an ID and the name property, and let's say that I want to parse the name and say, okay, the name needs to be of this specific type, and so I can create a specific type here and pass that type to that map, and automatically the system will check if the name, if the value in the name attribute that I'm inputting to that query, if it is valid or not according with the type that I created here. This is an example. Another example is I can convert a result from a query into objects directly. So the results came in a list format, but I can convert them into objects. And so in order to do that, I can create classes so it can make that specific conversion. So that's another example. A third example is that when I create, and this is specific for the Hibernate, when I'm creating objects in Hibernate, Hibernate creates a default object class for that specific Hibernate object that I'm creating. But if you want, you can extend that class. I can tell to the, when I'm creating the Hibernate object, I can tell, okay, besides creating this object dynamically, create this through my class and add this specific method. So basically I can extend a specific Hibernate object through a class that I create manually here. However, these classes, you create these classes through code, doing these manually. So I can show you an example. So basically this is PHP code. This is where I'm creating a type here, and this is where I'm creating an Hibernate object, which basically is empty, so it doesn't have any properties. But if I wanted to have some properties, I just needed to add here some methods or some attributes or whatever you want to extend that Hibernate object. So this is just an example. Okay, so going back to the external library. So I already explained you how to extend our workflow or local editor. I already explain how to create DAO objects, so data access objects, that you can use then in our data access layer. And I already explained how to extend the widgets inside of our layout UI editor, which is HTML what you see what you get editor. Then it's just only missing the test units. Basically test units, it is to test components inside of your projects in automatic way. So basically this is very useful because every time that you create projects and that you create a specific business logic service or a data access rule or whatever other components that you created, you can test that specifically. And every time that you deploy your project, you can just run a batch of test units to be sure that all of them run correctly, and only if that project passed that tests, then you can deploy the project correctly. So this is where you do that. So basically you can create a bunch of test units projects, and then you can run individually, or you can run multiple ones selected through here, or you can run them all together by clicking in here, which will execute all the tests inside of this specific folder. If you want to add more, you have all the icons to add, to remove, to edit, or you can do it through this menu here to add test units. If you want to then to see specific tests, you can click it here, edit, or through here. So let me just show you an example. You can edit them, the test units, through low codes or through code, depending of what you want to do. And then you can just execute them. This is executed correctly. If I execute this guy, it executed incorrectly. If I want to execute them all, I just click here and executes all the subtests. This is just an example. So basically, the external library is so you can upload vendor files, any software, external third-party softwares that you want to install in our framework, or to extend our framework, or to create other files that you wish to. The other files is where you put your client project files and the other files that you wish to, and the internal library, it's only for internal files. That is a read-only library that you cannot edit them, but you can see and you can reuse that specific code that are here. How can I know and understand that code? You go to our documentation, or you go to manage the doc book, and you can navigate through our internal library, and that's it. So thank you very much.